Alright, so today we're going to be reviewing this TS100 soldering iron that I got sent by somebody at Banggood. There's a link below if you want to see where to buy this thing. Just to be clear, I did not pay for this. They sent it to me for free so that we're all on the same page. And we're going to unbox this thing and check out how it works. So let's do that. Let's open this thing up.
Remember the touch bar one?
Okay. It says here that it is TS100 controller, soldering tip, safety instructions, hex key. And over here, safety instructions, which, like we're reading any of that, open this thing up. Safety instructions. Yeah. And we have a hex screwdriver. We have the unit itself. Carlos Campoverde donated $2.99. Thank you. This is a pretty neat looking unit. It's got some kind of cover over the LCD itself. It says TS100 here. And it's got a port on the top where I'm supposed to send it voltage. And I forget how much, so I'm going to look that up. And it also comes with an iron tip. We're going to see how this thing performs and go from there. So first thing I want to do is see how intuitive this thing is without actually having to use the instruction manual, because I try to figure out, I want to spend my time fixing stuff. I don't want to spend my time using an instruction manual. So I like to see how intuitive the gear is without having a result of the manual. So you have this little hex screwdriver, and then you've got some screws on the bottom of it that I'll show you in the microscope, because it may actually do better than showing you in the camera.
We could open it?
Or we could open it. So this, see here? You got some hex screws. Pretty cool. So I'm going to use that and kind of loosen it up before I put the tip in. You always want to loosen it up before you put the tip in. Okay? It actually has a really satisfying snap in there. With the Hakko, see, hear that? That's a beautiful, sexy snap. With the Hakko one, it's kind of just, it gets shoved in there and comes out, but you don't have that sexy snap sound. Here? It's just kind of bleh. It's kind of plain. That's the first cool thing. That was a beautiful, lovely little satisfying. Yeah, that's great. Putting the tip in never felt so good. So we're going to tighten that up. Now then, this is how you hold it. And what I'm going to do now is plug it into the power supply. Now, I forget how many volts this is supposed to have. Your videos give me inspiration, says Varric Veet. Thank you. Okay, we're going to plug this into my power supply. So, for those of you who want to see how I plan to power this, I have a link in the description, or I should have a link in the description, to a power supply that I use for powering the MacBooks, for testing purposes, and that's right here. That's my power supply. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to, is it 24 volts?
I forget.
I can't trust them on the screen. They're going to tell me that's something that's going to blow it up. All right, that sounds right. 24 volts, I'm sure. So I'm going to just plug it in here. All right. And voltage. All right. Current 5 amps. I'm sure that'll do it. And we're going to turn it on. Plug it in. Wrong tip, Paul.
Oh no. Are you kidding me?
Putting in the tip never felt so hard.
This is the standard barrel jack that everybody uses for DC everything, and that's not the right one.
Maybe it came with a wire. Really? That's
You
what
got adapters for that.
All right, let's find. Okay, we're gonna find the one that fits. No. No. All right. I was gonna do this edited. Paul's the one that said I should do it live. Paul's also the one that made that cable. Coincidence? No. Aha!
What letter?
C.
C.
Okay. How did you just have this at moment's notice? You are.
I'm Boy Scouts.
You are. You really are. Okay, so it's plugged in. Thanks to Paul. We're going to turn it on. We hit output. Now, once you hit output, it boots up. It tells you the version. And let's see if I can. It says press. Press. Do I press A? Okay, it says press this one. Okay, so it says 79 Celsius. And it's heating up. Okay, so it seems like it's trying to set itself at 300 Celsius. That's a fair temperature. Now I wonder how you adjust temperature on this thing. Okay, so when I hold the B button down, it brings me to a screen where I can adjust temperature. And unlike this Hacko pile of garbage over here that I like the iron of but I hate the interface of, you can actually adjust it in increments of 10 without having to go each digit at a time. So if for those of you who are kind of curious as to what I mean when I insult the Hacko like that, I'll just zoom in on it to show you how that works. In contrast to the Hacko, when you want to adjust the temperature on this thing, let me show you how you adjust it on the $230 station. Face detection off. Focus on this, not that.
No, this one?
Yeah, manual focus. I just said it's a manual. All right. Now, when you want to set the temperature on this thing, you have to hold the button down for 5. Actually, you need the little damn thing. You have a key in your station?
Yes.
Can I see the key? Awesome. Okay, so after you put the key in, what you have to do is hold this button down, and you can't you can't just adjust it like normally. You have to go over to. It's like an alarm clock. You have to hold the button down. It allows you to set invalid temperatures. If you set an invalid temperature, which is over 840, it won't give you an error or beep or say it can't do it. It'll just never allow you to leave the blinking mode. So this interface is actually, on the $236 station, is actually worse than the interface that you get on this little $53 device over here. So it starts up, you hit A, you hold down B for a second, it seems like, and then you can just choose a temperature. That is cool. So, bam. Let's see. Now I think you have to... Yeah, after 3 seconds, it seems like it settles in on a temperature. So now we're going to kind of test how it is to solder with this thing. I don't have really a spool for it, so I suppose I'm just going to use my container over here. Let's go back to autofocus. Here, turn you off. Put you to the side. Yeah, it doesn't have much of a sleep function, but what do you expect? So it passes the first test, and the first test is, does it have a better interface than a Hacko soldering product. And we're getting to a point where what doesn't have a better interface than a Hakko soldering product? The worst interface you will ever find on any product, bar none, in 2018 is a Hakko soldering product. Hakko has set the standard in having the worst interface imaginable for any of their products across the board, and they're probably never going to change it. But anyway, back to this. So let's see how this thing solders. We're just going to grab a board and work on some joints. And I'm also going to try and see how this works with my existing T12 tips. So I'm going to take a chip off one board, maybe tin something. Let's go into the microscope. So let me see if I can get the microscope on with this camera, because I want you to see how comfortable it is in the hand as I'm soldering with it. That's important. So we're going to see soldering, but I also want you to see comfort. All right, so how does it feel like to solder with this thing? Because that to me is incredibly important, and it's something that I haven't seen mentioned. Can you read comments? Is there anything worthwhile?
People are voting for or against a lot.
I almost forgot. Yoink. People are voting for what?
For and against it a lot.
For it or against?
Both.
Oh.
A lot of people are letting you know that thing's firmware updatable, and there is a new firmware out there that changes the UI a bit.
The UI is already better than what I expect for $50. Do you know the station KSGER STM32 2.1? Never heard of it. All right. So I'm going to add some flux.
That thing has a sleep function.
It has a sleep function?
It must have a gyroscope in it, like a phone gyroscope.
Huh. When does it go to sleep?
If you just put it on a desk and leave it alone.
I'll have to check that out in a moment. We'll check that out once I'm done soldering this. All right. Now, I think this comes with some sort of conical tip. That must be a joke, because conical is the worst. But it solders really well. It heats up well, and let's see how it deals with this center pad. All right, this conical tips do not like center pads. So I'm going to try changing it to one of my tips, and now we're going to see how universal the functionality on this really is. All right.
See if the pattern even matches before you even try that.
I'm sure it'll match. Okay. It doesn't beep when you take this out. That's the best feature by far. All right. You said I should check and see if the pattern matches, right? All right. Let's see. Okay. So the pattern on these two. Yep. The rings look identical. Now, the cool part about this is I may actually even be able to use my Hakko grip on this thing, because that would be amazing. Since one of my complaints, the first thing I noticed when I looked at this is I wondered how the hell it is that this is at all ergonomic, because it doesn't have a handle. All right, let's turn this thing on. Spanking, yes or no? I'll take your $2, but no. Okay, press button. All right, so it does seem like this will heat up Hakko tips. It also seems like the Hakko tips are much longer than the normal ones, so... Yeah. So let's check out how this works. So it looks like you can use the T12 tips with this just fine. And I'm just going to tighten that tip up before I... Oh yeah, that is beautiful. Yeah, this solders just as well as the normal Hakko. That's a really difficult ground plane over there, and we're going to try wicking that really difficult ground plane just to see how the power delivery is.
Like, that's a really important thing, that you can use regular Hacko tips that
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody mention about this thing.
Yeah, so you can use standard Hacko tips with this and they'll work just fine. And as you saw there, on a board that has a really hard ground plane on one of the highest power using circuits, I was easily able to wick no problem with a Hacko tip. Now, one of the obvious downsides to this, if you are using a Hacko tip, is that the Hacko tip is much longer. So let's just go over that, because that's going to be really important ergonomically speaking. So if you look at the tip that came with the station, it's this long. If you look at the tip for the Hacko, oh, screw it in, dumbass. You could damage the iron MOSFET with a too low res heating element. I don't know what you mean by low res. It's not.
Low resistance, I
Oh,
guess.
resistance. I thought my mind jumped to like 1080p or something. I'm being an idiot.
It's a 480p tip.
So as you can see, if you look, the Hacko tip is considerably longer than the TS100 tip. So a lot of my criticisms of this station were that it didn't seem ergonomic, because when you put you can see what it's like when you put this tip in there. It's just, you're working very far away, and this is no fun. You need to grip the Hacko tip over here. First time I caught you live. I like your videos. They're inspirational. They calm me down. Good luck from your repairs. Good luck, Hungary. Wow, I made 2,000 Hungarian dollars. Am I rich? Do you know what that is?
By the decay
Thank
on
you.
the thing, I don't think it's much.
Thank you. That's amazing. Anyway, so this here. Now,
So your cushion doesn't fit?
well, I'm going to see if the cushion fits. With the tip that comes with it, it's actually, this is reasonable. Because the thing with your soldering iron is, if you want to be accurate, you want to be as close as possible to the tip. You don't write with a pen like this. Your handwriting would be terrible if you were writing very fast with it like this. You want to write like this. So, my question is, can I put this Hacko tip thing, this grip on, and still use the station? Because if I can use the station like this, then, well, that's just amazing. So let's check it out and see if this is possible. This would be amazing. Do you think this will work, Paul?
Why not?
Let's see.
That should be fine.
All right, so I'm going to try using it like this. Just let me zoom out a little so you all can see. Check this out. You can buy this little Hacko grip online for like $10. So this is actually a really cool way to make yourself a cheap Hacko station if you have a power supply laying around. All right, we're going to turn this on and pray that I don't burn my fingers. Now, what I'm hoping is that this part up here does not get hot, and then only the tip gets hot. If this gets hot, I have a really good chance, if I do something like this, of burning myself. So I'm going to test it so you don't have to. So we're going to heat this thing up, turn it on, heat it up. This is really cool.
What is it?
It'll take a Hacko tip,
Oh.
and it'll heat the
Soldering
Hacko
iron,
tip.
the TS100.
Yeah. All right, it's heating up. Now my main thing is I want to see if this gets warm. Because if this gets warm, then I can't use it like that, because I'll
Yeah,
look.
I see it actually.
All right, so
I don't think it's going to get burning hot. It is going to get warm.
it's actually not even warm at 400 Celsius.
Really?
So the top of this, yeah, feel.
Oh.
Workman's comp will cover.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, so this is okay.
'Cause
Wow, this is
that's
great.
in the plastic. That can't get warm.
Yeah, so this piece
That's-
up here
that's
does
all the
not
way
get
in here.
warm at all, which
Oh,
means
yeah,
that I
that's
can
okay.
actually hold it from the grip down there. So let's see how comfortable that is while I'm using it. It actually kind of feels a little top heavy with the grip.
Is it stable though? Like the,
Soldering wise, it's keeping temperature. It has good power. I mean, the best part about it is that you hook it up to a battery pack and the thing's fully portable.
exactly.
You just take it wherever you want.
Where does it run off of?
Anywhere
24
from
volts.
12 to 24 volts and whatever battery pack you want to plug it
run off
into.
your car.
Yeah. You plug it into your cigarette lighter if you need to.
All right, so the one thing about it is
Or alligator
you
clips
can't
to your
really
battery.
twist this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not tied. Since this doesn't clip into the iron, since the grip doesn't clip into the iron, the grip doesn't really work well. See? Because I can, watch. I can rotate the grip
And just
I can rotate the grip without rotating the tip. You always want to be rotating the tip while rotating the grip. Oh my god, this sounds like a terrible stream. This is terrible. But see, look, you can, since this doesn't clip into here, so it would be really cool if somebody designed one of these with a grip that went all the way up. And I don't think it would be that hard to design one of these with a grip that went all the way up. So with the grip, I'll say this is honestly, this is actually, with the grip it actually is pretty bad. Yeah, I thought the grip would be nice because it made it easier to solder close up, but it actually makes it very annoying because I can't rotate it, and I usually do like to rotate it. Oh my god, this is going to get taken out of context so bad. Why did I agree to review? But yeah, so if somebody, now this would be really cool if somebody made a grip for this thing that genuinely fit it. Because this is I would drive myself nuts soldering like this. So let's see what it's like if I take off this grip that I admittedly shouldn't even have here. So I'm just gonna take that grip off. Alright, so that was a failed experiment. I tried it, it was worth it. I think it was worth trying, but okay, this is a T15 BCM2 tip. Let's try to solder some stuff that maybe, let's say I need to reflow U8900 because that's a common job, right? Let's see how that works out. One thing that's actually annoying here is the wire. So if you're going to get a wire for this, don't use speaker wire like we did. Because it kind of like wraps around you. So I guess that's one thing if you're going to use this thing for yourself. Make sure the wire you use to attach it to the power supply is something that feels like a microphone cable or something, but a really thin one.
Some nice silicone wire or something.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a bit of a pain in the ass since it's too far away. Here, let me get this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing with my hand. Like, it's weird when it's this far away. Is it grounded? Of course it's grounded. Beautiful. So this works pretty well. I have no problem with the interface that this thing comes with. It comes with a really good interface, and it works with T12 tips. You know, should we torture it with the ridiculous tip?
The giant one? See if it powers it?
Let's see if it powers the ridiculous one. Alright, I'm going to do something a little mean right now. I'm sorry to the iron in advance. Let's see if this thing would be fit for a BGA rework. Yes. This is the T15 1403. This is the tip that I would use for removing the solder and wicking all the solder underneath the GPU. This is mean, but I'm just curious if it would work with that tip. Can't you get Hacko-style tips that's shorter? I don't think you can because of the way those tips are designed to work with the FM 2027 iron. So if you got a tip that was shorter, since it's taking into account the length of the grip and everything that's static on that iron, I don't think they would work. Yeah. Alright, we're going to try this tip. This is the biggest, widest tip that I have. Okay. I would be surprised if it's able to heat this one up. Whoa. It's doing it. Holy. 167? 190?
It's taking 2.7 amps.
2.7 amps. Yeah, that was what it was taking with the other one. So it's going to take a while because it usually takes the Hacko a while to heat this one up. Whoa. It's doing it. It's holding it's trying to hold straight 400 Celsius. All right. Well, let's see what it does on something crazy like here. We're going to mutilate the LCD connector on this donor board. Okay, this tip is just vicious. This iron is vicious. It's able to power that tip. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Now, do you think it would be able to do that at 12 volts?
I'd like to see if the amperage changes at 12 volts too.
Yeah, let's take a look. I'm going to lower this down to 12 volts. So output voltage, voltage. Let's try just straight up 12. It's heating up much slower. Granted, the tip was already kind of hot, but let's see if it'll make it to 400 as I try to solder onto something like a ground plane. Yeah, I'll solder onto the ground plane of the LCD connector. So apparently there is some new firmware. I'm not going to update the firmware on stream because that would be incredibly boring to have 600 people sit here watching me plug something into a USB cable. But it works pretty well with the current firmware that it has. Okay, now I'm at 12 volts instead of 24, and I want to see if it still has the power to maintain its temperature into a ground plane. So I'm just gonna torture it with the largest tip I have, sending it straight into the ground plane, and it seems to be lowering itself down in temperature. It's down to 343, 330.
And it's a steady 1.3 amp draw.
Yeah, and it's a steady 1.3 amp draw rather than 2.7. It's almost down to 300. This soldering iron is about $53 plus shipping from Banggood. Okay, we're down to 296, 294. Yeah, so at 12 volts, it's not impressive at 12 volts. 280, yeah, I'm gonna keep it here until it finishes its drop. Let's see, can I turn it around a little so that you can see? I'm gonna turn it so you can see the temperature as it's dropping. Alright, you probably can't see that. We're at 280. 281. Alright, so 280 Celsius is where we've stabilized. So I can't go above 280 Celsius with a large tip driving a heavy ground plane at 12 volts. Now we're going to up this back up to 24 volts and see what this thing's capable of. And let's see if the controller gets angry at me doing this on the fly. So it seems like the controller doesn't mind me doing that on the fly. And now we're up to 2.7 amps, and it was able to knock that LCD connector straight off the board. So the temperature spiked. It's able to maintain a temperature of 390, and that LCD connector doesn't know it hit it. It's right off the board. So it does have the capability to work at 12 volts. It's just you're not going to get optimal output without 24. And again, about specs in terms of temperature, that depends on the tip that you're using. Like, I'm sure that this tip will probably get 400 Celsius, so no problem. So let's just try one of those. Let's just try a more conventional tip like the one that it comes with. I lost the hex screwdriver it comes with already. How did I...
Right there.
Oh, awesome. Alright, so let's try the original tip that it comes with. I'm going to turn it off and let's see what the original tip is capable of at 12 volts. Is he powering this with a lab power supply? Yes. Get the open source firmware, it's way better than stock. Yeah, I don't really want to update the firmware on stream again. That's going to be boring. Like, watching me figure out how to update the firmware on this is going to be boring. Watching me flash something is going to be incredibly boring. It's kind of boring. And this works. Alright. Okay. Okay, let's try 12 volts with this. Alright. You'd be selling this in your store. I don't think so. We'll see. It is ergonomic with the original tip, I gotta say, because one of the complaints that I had with this station was that I had no idea how it was you would be able to use something like this. It didn't seem ergonomic at all. It didn't seem like it would feel good in your hand. But it actually is, but you believe it or not, it actually does feel kind of ergonomic when you're using it with its original tip. When you're trying to use it with the Hacko tip, that's when it goes downhill. Alright, so it looks like this was only able to reach 322 Celsius. It looks like it's actually, no, 365. Alright, it's heating up very slowly at 12 volts, but it is able to heat up. And we're at 390 Celsius, which is pretty close to temperature. So let's see how it is at soldering some pads. So we're just going to tin some of these pads with the stock tip. The stock tip is conical, so again, it is pretty awful. There's really almost nothing worse in life than soldering with a conical tip. Yeah, soldering with a conical tip is just worse than being stabbed in the eye. I mean, this is awful. I don't know why people would do this to themselves. But I suppose if you're into that type of thing, you can do that with this iron. There we go. And it does seem like it's able to maintain temperature. But for the hell of it, I'm going to go up to 24 volts. See how that performs. Yeah, pretty much same thing. So if you're using the stock tips, you can get away with 12 volts just fine. If you're using a non-stock tip, then you may want to go up to 24 volts. If you're using a non-stock tip, this thing's also going to be hella uncomfortable. This is really comfortable with the stock tip, but the stock tip is conical. The stock tip is conical. And conical tips are just terrible. So let's take a look and see what type of tips they have available for this thing. Can you use this iron to repair super advanced mega spanking technology? Sure, why not? Why don't you go play Spanky's Quest for Game Boy? Alright, so let's take a look and see if they... Someone said there is a 12-in-1 kit. A 12-in-1 kit for tips. Let's look that up. Because if there is, then that'd actually be worth it. I just want to see if the tips are good tips or if they're garbage. Let's take a look and see what they have. So, mini replacement tips. Okay, I don't know if that's the 12-in-1 kit. If anybody got a link to a 12-in-1 kit, that would be pretty cool, actually. What do we have here? What type of tips are these? All right, so it does look like you can get numerous other tips. And this is a flat one, not the same as the Hakko. This is a tip I could actually use. It's not conical. It's one of those beveled one looking. Yeah, that's a conical. That's Cancer. Okay, this looks like a flat tip. This looks like the one that I like to use. I enjoy that tip. That one looks a little small for me, but this is one that I like. I like this. This is very similar to the T30-KN. Yeah, see, it seems like you can buy a breadth of different tips. Again, you don't have the selection. I'm going to be clear and honest. You don't have the selection of tips that you would have with the Hakko. You clearly get better selection of tips with the Hakko than you get with this, by far. But, and you get a more ergonomic iron. It's just the question of, do you really want to spend that much extra money on the Hakko 936? And I would say probably not, really, honestly. Again, if you don't have a power source, that's going to be an issue for you. Keep in mind, if you want this to work, you do need to have an external power source, and that's part of what you're paying for when you get the Hakko FX 951. When you buy a Hakko FX 951, it comes with the power supply unit and all that. This unit's $53, but you need to power it off of something like this. And I paid something like, I think somewhere like $100, $150 at the time for this power supply. You can buy cheaper ones than this. You don't have to spend that much money on it. You're probably going to wind up spending an absolute minimum of $50 if you want to get some sort of good bench power supply similar to this thing over here. That's, anything less than $50 wouldn't really, I don't know if I would really necessarily trust it for this, but you could probably find it or put something together. Here, someone says there's a 12-in-1 T. Here, I'm going to search for the exact same thing that someone in the chat just brought up. Let's take a look at this. Here we go. 12-in-1. All right, so you can get this kit over here. This is $139 and comes with a bunch of tips. And let's see what these tips all look like. Ooh, you even get a little stand with it. That's pretty cool. I didn't get a stand with this, but here you get a stand. It comes with a cable. Although, admittedly, this cable is really short and looks hella uncomfortable. Yeah, this cable looks like it sucks. So I would still suggest making your own cable. You get the stand. Come on, show me each tip individually. I want to see what each tip looks like individually. I don't want an overview. Alright, so this 12-in-1 thing is cool, but it doesn't really show you what each individual tip looks like. Let's see. Can we scroll down and find that? For smaller, for better. Reduce sectional area, improve the thermal conductivity. I don't know, this seems kind of like propaganda to me. I could be wrong, but this seems a little propagandistic to me. I didn't notice any superiority in thermal conductivity. This performs identically to the FX 951, for better or for worse. For better, because it's way cheaper than the FX 951. For worse, because they're saying it performs better. I didn't notice any difference here. So I would say that this for smaller, for better thing, I mean, I didn't notice that. And again, keep in mind, the top part is not what gets hot. The bottom part is. You do get a bunch of different tips. Quick and Isai soldering tip replacement. You always want to make sure that it's Isai to replace your soldering iron tip. Isai. I'm going to Google each one of these individually just so I can come up with which ones I would recommend that you buy. Because I do want to come up with a conclusion as to whether or not this is good for a hobbyist. Or not even for a hobbyist, but for somebody who wants to kind of do the same work that I do. I imagine a lot of the people watching are people that want to do the same work that I do, so it would make sense if this was able to do that. So let's take a look through these tips and see which ones are good and which ones are BS. Because the ergonomic issue seems to be solved so long as you use one of their short tips. Alright. Just clear my desk of all this stuff. And Okay. Now, I'm going to search for each of these tips. Let's see. TSK. Is this a tip that I would like? Okay, so this is definitely a tip that I would get for soldering QFNs. Quality. TSD24. Maybe. TSBC2. I got myself a ThinkPad T420 for $300.
Did you try the sleep function?
Not yet. I don't. I'm looking up the tips to see what would work well. I don't know how to use the sleep function. I got to read the manual for that.
I think you just don't touch it.
BC2 seems like a tip I wouldn't want. Let's see, how about TSB2? Not this one either. That's Conical. Conical is terrible. Let's see, TS-KU. TS-I. TS-KU tip doesn't seem to exist. T-Mart has it.
That one didn't work.
What?
The SSD one.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Alright, so I can't see a picture of what it
I
looks like.
called it.
Here we go. So the TSKU. TSKU actually
At
seems
least
more
still
useful than
turns on,
TSK. And the TSC4. Okay, so this one will show me all of them up front. So I would get this iron with the TSC4 and the TSKU. That should allow you to do everything it is that you need to do. If you can find. And you can buy those tips for about $10 a piece. So let's figure out what your budget is going to be when you buy this thing. And let's figure out if it's really that competitive with the Hacko after all, which is what all of you are actually interested in. So when you buy the iron, you're spending, let's see, so TS100. All right, so you're going to spend $54 for the US. Yeah. There we go. So $53.11, right? Now I'm going to want to get myself, let's see, I'm going to want to get myself a TSKU and a TSC4. So a TS-KU. All right, so it's going to be like 20 bucks. TSKU, which doesn't seem to be in stock. And what was the other one I wanted? The TSC4, TSKU. TSC4. There we go. So the TSC4 is the only one that's in stock right now. All right. And maybe a bench power supply. Alright, something like this will work, probably. I'm assuming Banggood's not selling me a power supply that's going to blow up in my face. Now, here's the problem with this iron if you're looking for absolute cheapest. Once you've added this to cart, with a power supply, assuming you don't already have a power supply, you're looking at a total cost of ownership of $128 plus shipping from China. And, as you know, shipping from China is not going to be cheap. So if you already have a power supply, if you already have some way of getting 12 to 24 volts to this, then I think you'll be good. But if you don't already have a way of getting voltage to it, then, and you're absolutely at the low end of the spectrum financially, you know, you're destitute, you or I was when I started and I was had no money for anything, I would suggest getting a knockoff 951 instead, which they typically have on AliExpress, unless the thing has gotten taken off or exploding in someone's face or something. Mine didn't explode in my face. This will actually work with any of these tips, and this iron over here is $47 and it comes with a power supply. So this is the handpiece. It will work with any Hacko tips You're going to have to buy the tips, but it'll work with any Hakko tips. It is a knockoff, so, buyer beware. I did a review of one of these. The only thing that bothered me about it was that the leads inside of the station were not trimmed. You could find that review on my channel, Hakko FX951 knockoff. So I did a review of it here. You can find that here. I did a nice long-winded review. I opened it up and everything, and I soldered with it so you can see how I thought it went. If you're looking for absolute pure cheapskateness, this is the way to go. And the performance of this is going to be the same as the performance of the TS100. Identical. And it comes with a power supply. And it has a grip so that you can use it with existing Hakko tips without having to buy specific Banggood tips. This is also a bonus if you have a store like mine where you have multiple Hakko stations. If you already have a bunch of tips and you're not always using the same tips at the same time, and you get somebody a knockoff Hakko and that person has an original Hakko, you can kind of mix your tips back and forth. If you don't really care about that and you're not at the absolute end of your budget, then you can get something like this. It costs more money, obviously, because you need to run it with a power supply, but it is pretty good. The ergonomic concerns that I had, as I said, all of my ergonomic concerns go away when I'm using the original tip, and I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to think that this was complete garbage. I was expecting to give it a terrible, terrible review, because when I look at this, it looks incredibly uncomfortable. It just... Like, anybody that does... I remember Jessa saying there's no way I would ever use this thing, and I understand why Jessa thinks that. It looks really uncomfortable. It just... the Hakko comes with a nice little rubber grip, and this is just this piece of plastic, and you have this. I mean, this instead of a rubber grip, that's insane. But it actually feels really good. I like this. I think it's awesome. It's a cool little tool, and it's also usable portably, which is great, as long as you have some kind of battery power source.
Do you want to try?
Don't we have that little... Actually, yeah, so check this out. This is something I actually did a review of this laptop battery a while ago, and it looks like it's still charged. So I got this thing. It does 20 volts at 3 amps. I did a review of this a while ago. This is a Max Oak battery. This is a pretty cool... I was able to power quite a bit with this. Let me find my Max Oak. Here we go. Yeah, so I did a review of this a while back. So today I wanted to go... Shut up, asshole. So this this is my review of this battery, and here's a link to where you can buy it on Amazon. It's $135, but you can actually power something like my ThinkPad with a Quadro and a quad-core CPU, and you can power it for hours, like literally hours, off of this battery. It's great, and I'm going to see if this works with the Banggood. Will it Banggood? So let's see if it'll heat the temperature with this baby. Well, I'll be. It's heating up. This is cool. And it's heating up very fast, too. So this will work. This will do it. Only use 5 seconds or less. Yeah, so this is portable soldering at its... And it's really nice. Because typically, here's the thing. Portable soldering irons, if you've ever tried a lot of the portable soldering irons that are powered off of a battery, they suck. They really, really suck. Here, you can get identical performance to a Hakko 951 that you can take with you on the go. I don't know if they make batteries that are cheaper than this that will do the job the same. They probably do. I did a bunch of research to find something that had high amperage output. Again, I was planning to use this with a quad-core CPU and a Quadro when I was going around doing the right to repair stuff, and I wanted to be able to record and stream at the same time, and I didn't know if I'd have an outlet available. So But this is great. So you can actually power this off of a battery, and at 20 volts it heats up very quickly. At 20 volts you're probably not even really losing much performance. Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive. And with the tips that are available up over there, I think this would be a great iron. This is definitely not the most bargain basement choice. If you are completely broke, if you are absolute bottom of the barrel broke, go to that $47 knockoff Hacko. It'll be better than the Weller that Dave Jones reviewed. It'll be better than anything that you can buy for $47. It'll be better than the FX888. But if you want something that's portable, you have a little extra money, I think this is pretty cool. Now, how to figure out the sleep function. I still personally use this just because I don't want to have to make my own wire to my station. You know, that's another thing about this. If you buy something like this, or whether or not you're gonna like something like this, has to do with whether or not you like just the idea of having to make your own wire for your station, like just having to think about this stuff. I personally don't like thinking about that stuff. I like the idea of just having a wire that doesn't get really tangled easily. But I'm very picky. Okay, now let's see. Let me read your comments, and after that I'll be out of here. So let me get the other comments window up. Someone says just use a 24-volt laptop power supply. The TS100 likes a laptop power supply. Okay, so you may be able to do that. The only thing is you have to be careful with the knockoff ones, because they may not like immediate bursts. So for example, I have a thermal printer that requires 19 volts. I thought, okay, the power supply to it died. Let me just get this big Toshiba brick laptop power supply that I have and attach it. Wouldn't print labels right, it would stop halfway through. Tried a Lenovo one, would stop halfway through. Tried an HP one, it stopped halfway through. And then I finally found some large Dell one or something that was able to do it. Someone has made a grip adapter. Check dial 3 something's link. Let's see what you got. Okay. Well then. Somebody made this. Looks pretty cool.
Awesome.
What is this? Okay, so you 3D print this thing. See the station. ASGER STM32. You can use Hacko tips. I'll check that out in a moment. This little adapter lets you use Hacko T12 T15 tips on your TS100 iron. Of course, your iron will be bigger, but the upshot is that the Hacko tips can be had for cheaper, and the little rubber grip on the Hacko has a lot better feel than the body of the TS100. Well, that's cool. Order this printed. What if I don't have a 3D printer and I want to buy it? Okay. I'm old and dumb. I don't know how to make this work when I click on it. So this is definitely an interesting thing. I'll have to put this in the description. This allows you to use a grip on it. This is nice. Yeah, so see, what I was saying before is that I can't twist the iron because the grip will just spin, but once it clips into this, it'll work. That's cool. That's cool. I'm glad I read my comments. Did you click the link for the grip adapter? Yes. All right. Next comment section. What do we have here? What about Esd Safety? Go watch Des's channel for that. Watch. Do you have any FM203s? Yes, I do. Don't go over 24 volts with the TS100. All the caps inside are 25 volt rated. Well, that's cutting it close. 25 volt caps is pushing it for 24 volts. Yeah, you're telling me. Laptop charger? Again, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I'd just be careful with it. At least use a beefy one. Paul Daniel said, did the new updated meter software work okay? Paul, I promise I'm going to update it as soon as I update Open Board View. Let's read the rest of these comments. The best thing about the custom firmware is you can get it to reach 450 Celsius. Yes, I get it. I could update the firmware, but that's boring. So 400 Celsius is fine. Is a knockoff Hacko from eBay worth it? I'm not sure if it's the same one as the knockoff that I reviewed from AliExpress.
Probably the same.
Look at this reference, power supply 24 volts. I recommend LRS 100-24, brand Meanwell. There's a brand called Meanwell.
They mean well.
They suck, but they mean well. Is that for real? Wow. Meanwell. The brand name is actually called Meanwell. And it's sold on Mouser, so. Alright, output is 24 volts, output is 4.5 amps, and it's $14. Okay, so my apologies for my comments earlier on price of power supply. I was being an idiot. You can power this thing for $14.73 plus $7 for Mouser's shipping. I'm going to add this to my links as well. I got to find my live description and paste all this stuff before I forget. All right. Where did I put the... grip? We're going to find the power supply and put it there. This is a pretty nice power supply. That's a funny brand name. Meanwell. It really does sound like that's the name of, after they got sued for something. Power supply. What the? Killing me. Alright. So, I'm going to put the links in the description that are going to go over all the stuff that I recommend. And, yeah. This thing's pretty cool. I recommend it. Honestly, at this point, even if you are broke, I would get this over the knockoff FX951. It's an extra $14 for the power supply. It's not going to kill you. So, that's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something.